Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these are today's headlines from the past. On this day, the 2nd of December in 1697, the rebuilt St. Paul's Cathedral, the work of Sir Christopher Wren, was opened to the public. One of the most iconic moments in the history of one of the most iconic landmarks of London. Moving forward, on this day in 1804, Napoleon Bonaparte was crowned emperor in Paris by Pope Pius VII. On this day, 1 year later in 1805, Napoleon defeated the Austro-Prussian, well, not Austro-Prussian, Austro-Russian force at the Battle of Austerlitz. Therefore, this day would go down in history as the most significant day, in fact, the most significant days in 1804 and 1805 in the history of Napoleonic politics and the Napoleonic Wars. Naturally, with the coronation of Napoleon and with one of his most significant battles. Continuing on this date, in 1823, American President James Monroe's Monroe Doctrine was proclaimed, opposing foreign and especially European interference and involvement in the politics of the United States of America. One of the most bold and significant maneuvers ever done by an American president in the history of American internal policy. Moving forward, in 1942, at the University of Chicago, the world's first nuclear chain reaction took place as the first atomic pile began operating under the direction of physicists Enrico Fermi and Arthur Compton. This would be a date that would go down in the history of the Second World War and later on the Cold War, for it would be the first atomic pile and the first nuclear chain reaction that would signal the progress in the quest to build the atomic bomb. And lastly, in 1982, the first artificial heart was fitted to dentist Dr. Barney B. Clark at the University of Utah Medical Center, Salt Lake City. Unfortunately, he died the following March, but the event of placing an artificial heart would go down in the history, well, in the long history of prosthetic parts of the human body and in the history of medical sciences. And on that note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. And now we move on to the next segment of our show where we recount the famous births and deaths of famous figures from the 19th and 20th centuries and sometimes earlier. Born on this day, the 2nd of December in 1859, was Georges Seurat, French painter who was a founder of the Neo-Impressionist school, popularly known as Pointillism. His paintings made a major contribution towards the development of what is today known as modern art. Thus, his birth is celebrated by all the aficionados of modern art today. And on this day, in 1547, Hernan Cortes, Spanish conqueror of Mexico, passed away. Hernan Cortes has gone down in history as one of the most iconic symbols of colonial expansion originating in this time period. And lastly, in 1918, Edmond Rostand, French playwright of Cyrano de Bergerac, died on this day. And on that unfortunate note, we conclude today's headlines of the day. You are watching and listening to Historian Radio's Echoes of the News, and I am Muhammad Hussain Qazi, and these were today's headlines as history first heard them. Good night.